right. Hey there. Peace and love, everybody. Sending you all good vibes on this, the seventh day of November 2021. I hope that everybody is well out there today. That this day and this moment, whether you're watching this live or whether you catch this on the playback, find you blessed and knowing that you're blessed and just overall good vibes surrounding you and also pouring forth from you, which I think is equally important. So, it's been fall for a little while. I was actually born on the first day of fall, which was well over a month ago now. But the fall just hit Florida, where I live now, this past week. The autumn just hit this past week in terms of the weather and what it feels like. But there's some things. I believe that there's some things that are present with each season. I believe that each season has its own kind of vibe, if you will. Um, And one of the things about the season of autumn, also referred to as fall, is obviously the leaves start changing colors. They begin to fall to the ground. It begins to get cooler. From a dietary perspective, it's good to start eating like root vegetables and things of that nature. It's a time of grounding. These are things that are kind of consistent with the season of fall. One of the things that's also significant to me about the season of fall it's a time of settling down and settling in, or preparing to settle down and settle in. With that also comes a sense of, in a way, it can seem, whereas the spring feels like a new birth on some level, the fall can seem like a little bit of a death, if you will, or a preparation for death. And with that, I want to bring up the topic for focus in today's live broadcast, and that's dealing with addressing unhealed hurts of the past, or even more significantly, healing unhealed hurts of the past. Hey there, whoever that is, welcome. It's certainly good to see you. Good to have you in the space today. And so, in the autumn season, you know, I feel like this is a good time to address those things, those unhealed hurts of the past, and to shine some light in that direction. You know, uh, like I said earlier, every season kind of has its own vibe. They're good things to focus on during every season. And one of the things I mentioned about the season of autumn or the season of fall is, to a degree, it can be like a death of things done and or letting things go, putting things aside. And it really isn't so much a total death from the standpoint of a laying things down in order to regroup and build again anew come the spring. Okay. And so I want to address with us today, and I'd love to know who's with us today. If you can just drop in the chat who you are, or say hello, and you don't have to say who you are because that's going to show up. But we'd always love to know who's here. But we want to definitely address things that have maybe been things that hurt us in the past, things that we had maybe not resolved yet in the past, and we want to begin to lay those things down. Okay, bring healing to those unhealed areas of our lives. Why do we want to address these unhealed things? And quite frankly, these unhealed issues could be things that stemmed from childhood. There could be some things that we experienced in childhood that have actually stayed with us and have impacted us in various ways. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to say it as an absolute fact. If you're watching this broadcast, there was some stuff that you experienced in your childhood that's still worth releasing, worth moving beyond, some things that still need to be addressed, some things that still need to be healed, some things that are still to some degree holding you back from experiencing the totality of who you are and expressing the fullness of who you are and all of your brilliance and light and wonder. Curly Conscious King, greetings to you, my brother. Good to have you in from YouTube today. And I see that there are some other folks who are here today. Certainly more than happy to have you as well. Another thing that can happen is that we might have unhealed hurts from things that we experienced in any number of relationships, whether they're romantic relationships, whether they're business relationships, work situations, situations with friends, with teachers, and so forth. And so what ends up happening is that we go on through life. We have this, and all of us carry baggage of some sort, to some degree, of unhealed things from our past, things that really serve as kind of a weight that hold us back from really being able to fly, rise and fly as we were created to and always intended to. And so that doesn't mean that you can't have an amazing life, a wonderful life. You might have a life that is many ways the envy of many, many, many people. But for any of us to be the fullness, the absolute, to live the highest version of the grandest vision of ourselves, then it's important for us to be able to, as much as possible, to release those things that are holding us back, to release those hurts from the past, to move beyond those unresolved wounds, and really maybe I should have called this healing the wounds, the unhealed wounds of the past, because every one of us has some wounds that we experience, that we have experienced. And if you experience a physical wound, that physical wound can heal, but there could maybe be some scar tissue that's left behind, some hematomas that may develop, that still keeps that area from necessarily being all that it could be if those things aren't properly addressed. In a similar way, we might have some things that we've experienced, some emotional hurts that we've experienced, that the scar tissue that builds up in that case is walls that we put up to try to use to keep others at bay, to keep ourselves from being hurt, but also walls that imprison us to keep us from being free. Okay. And I think that's super, super significant. I think that's super, super significant. And on a very real level, I mean, it's an understandable thing. It's a justifiable thing. There are things that we experience that didn't feel good to us, and we don't want to experience those things again. Sometimes there could be things in our children's lives where they've experienced pain. No parent ever wants their child to experience pain. And that doesn't matter how old you are as a parent or how old your offspring are as children. You never want them to have to experience pain. You may want to kind of shield them from that. Those who you love, you don't want them to experience pain. But the reality is that we all have a journey. Did I lose my mic? I don't feel my mic. I hope that you all can hear me. Yeah, it appears that my mic was in my stomach. My apologies for that, good people. Excuse this. Unfortunately, since I'm not the greatest at editing video, this is what's going to be broadcast online. So just excuse that little foible. But the reality is, I've got it on backwards. I need to get this thing on here. Sorry about this, folks. Okay, that doesn't look too cool, but hopefully you can hear me now. I don't know how much you heard before. While the mic was chilling in my stomach, it apparently had fallen off my shirt.
But hopefully you were able to at least catch some of it. I don't know how muffled it was or anything like that, but hopefully you were able to at least catch part of what it was that I was saying. Just as a quick rehash, we're dealing with unhealed hurts of the past, unhealed wounds of the past, healing unhealed hurts and wounds from the past, specifically is what we're going to be focusing on today. And yes, there is a thing as the wounded warrior, the one who goes into battle and who fights and sustains some wounds on the way. And one thing about a warrior is it doesn't matter how many times a warrior gets knocked down, a warrior will still continue to get up and fight. Whether that's a warrior and in the arena of literally a physical fight, or whether that's a warrior, a spiritual warrior, or a warrior of love. They continue to press forward. They continue to get up no matter how many times they're knocked down. The poet William Ernest Henley really spoke to this kind of warrior when he said, "Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed." That's the kind of the will of the warrior, the one who continues to press forward. And yet, even the warrior, it's good for those wounds to be addressed. And there's such thing as the unhealed healer, the person who brings, who serves as a vessel of healing in the lives of many people, and yet has their own issues that still need to be healed, addressed, resolved, worked out, and dealt with. Okay. I will tell you that I count myself in that number. Yes, there have been thousands of people I've been blessed to be able to help in their journey, uh, all across the United States, um, really all across North America, um, and South America, and Africa, and then in the Middle East, and in Europe. So I don't know about anybody in Australia, but like all across the world, a whole lot of people. And yet there's still unhealed aspects within me that need to be addressed. And so I'm able to speak about this from a very real place, from a very real place. And the reality is that if you are living life as a human being on planet Earth, then there are some wounds that you've sustained in your journey. And and maybe you feel like you've gotten past some things, and then something in life will happen that serves as a trigger. And then you're like, oh my goodness, I thought that I had gotten past this. I thought that I had already dealt with this. I thought that this was already resolved. And then something, because that's how life works. And I believe that while it can be extremely frustrating when that happens, I believe that that is part of the beauty and the gift that life offers us, is that we always have opportunities to see where there's room for growth, where there's room for improvement. And we have these different life experiences that come into our path that open up opportunities for us to be able to, like the leaves on the trees in the fall, to for us to allow it to fall away from us. Because in reality, those things cannot go on and allow us to be the greatest version of ourselves. Okay. They can't allow us to be the greatest version of ourselves. Now, how do you know that you have some unhealed hurts that that still need to be addressed? Well, if you, like I said earlier, if you're watching this, it's certain that you do. If you're human, it's certain that you do. But a way that you can really be specifically aware of where some of those hurts might exist is when something comes up and you respond in a way that isn't really healthy. And what do I mean by you respond in a way that really isn't healthy? Uh, there are some ways that are obvious, and then there's some ways that are more subtle. Okay. And some of the obvious ways, when you find yourself having these knee-jerk reactions to things, okay, when there's situations where your response might be at an 8 or a 9 or a 10, But really, the thing that took place really only warranted something, a response that was maybe at a level of a 2, right? Um, and it may be these little subtle things that may happen, but uh, you may find yourself like really going off on somebody or being, really perhaps unnecessarily harsh with them at a time where their response is wondering, what is it that I did? Why is this going on? Why, uh, and if you may be known as a person who's explosive in disagreements, it can be an indication that there's some unhealed hurt. Maybe there is some situation where you felt somebody wronged you in the past. And any little thing that could seem like an offense, you're going to let them have it to make sure that you're never in that situation again. But the reality is at that point, you begin to become the abuser of yourself. Not just maybe an abuser of other people, but an abuser of yourself. Because you've created um, this defense mechanism that's intended to keep you from getting hurt, but that's actually perpetuating your hurt. And so, while it is appropriate to establish healthy boundaries, you know, be mindful of the areas where you can address yourself and your own healing more deeply. And one of the things that you may want to do when you find that happening is look at, why did I get so upset in this situation? What is it that, what is it? Yes, what this person did was this, and maybe it wasn't so cool, but why did it bother me to this degree? Okay. That can be an area where you can be kind of notified that you've got some unhealed wounds to address. And then look back and explore, when did you first have that feeling? Okay. And then begin to address that. Then begin to speak to that person. Sometimes you got to minister to yourself. Speak to that person, give that person what it was that they needed that they didn't have at that time. Maybe you're a person, maybe you're a person who, it doesn't matter what happens, you don't feel anything. There's just a numbness that you feel no matter what happens in life, no matter what a person does. It doesn't it doesn't reach you on the inside, um, as you've just developed a numbness to whether you neither feel extreme pain or extreme joy, or may never feel the pain that's actually there because you've numbed yourself to it. And there are a lot of ways that we self-medicate in order to numb ourselves from pain of unhealed hurt, pain of unresolved wounds from the past. Some of us may do that through alcohol or through use of some other drugs. This is a key way that we do it, through these devices that we have. Sometimes we may do that through sex, through promiscuity. A lot of people in relationships are really damaged, are really, really damaged. I was part of a men's group. This is several years ago, part of a men's group. And half of the men in this men's group, in this one particular meeting, half of the men in this men's group confessed to being sexually abused at some point growing up. Half of the men. And if there's anything that's true of a man, of any man, is that a man wants to be and feel strong, powerful. That a man does not want to feel weak. Okay. Um, But if you're experiencing that kind of abuse, that's definitely not a feeling of empowerment. And out of those, half of all of the men who were in this meeting confessed to having been sexually abused. And out of those men, half of them identified as same gender loving, and the other half um, had tried to conquer as many women as they possibly could, to 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 bed as many women as they possibly could in order to prove to themselves that they weren't gay, right? And so, like, I remember, and again, this was years ago, but I remember looking at that, and I remember seeing how significantly, and at the time, around that time, I had a radio show called "The Sacred Meets the Secular," and we had a show where we addressed sexual abuse, and we had um, both men and the women who were on the show, and who shared about their experience. I had friends that I didn't even know had that experience before, both male and female, who had that experience before, and I never knew that. And as I was doing the research, I found how profoundly prevalent that was, not just with women, but with men too, who had at some point experienced some form of sexual abuse before the age of 18. you know. Um, and I looked at that and I saw how significantly that one thing has impacted society, because I would imagine it would be practically impossible to go through that experience and not be profoundly impacted by it in some kind of way. That doesn't mean there isn't healing available, but I imagine it would be practically impossible to endure that without it having some type of psychological impact, and some type of psychological impact that would affect a person well into, you know, their life experience, in a number of ways, particularly as it relates to relationships and the way they relate to human beings, other human beings. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how sweet your life is, how much money you have in the bank, how many yachts or cars or houses you own, what kind of success you've been able to amass materially, or what kind of material wealth you've been able to amass. The quality of your life, the enjoyment of your life is significantly connected to the quality of your relationships, because we're all hardwired for connection with one another. Okay. We're all hardwired for that. It's part of the divine design according to which God created us in the first place, right? And so here we are in a society where so many people, both male and female, have experienced this one particular thing. And I didn't know I'd be focusing on this so long, but this one particular trauma of the ill of sexual abuse in some form. And so that creates all kinds of pain results from that. All kinds of pain results from that. And then people end up being in relationships with other people later. Okay. I'll give a scenario. I'm not saying that this was true with any of these particular men that I was referring to. We'll say that it was, because it's impossible for that not to have been the case, or virtually so anyway. So you have this man who is sexually abused, this boy who is sexually abused. He goes through seeing essentially women as objects, where their feelings don't matter so much, but him getting his, and as a way of him feeling strong, a way of him feeling empowered, because he's trying to address that person who many, many years ago felt disempowered, a way that he then becomes, sometimes finds a way to feel empowered, is by having his way with as many women as he can. And so then that woman, I've said before, the most sacred place on the planet Earth is between a woman's legs. It's the portal for new dimensions. I mean, it's the portal for passing through dimensions. It's the portal through which life enters in and comes out. There's no more sacred space on the planet than between a woman's legs. And I don't say that in a crass way, but in a very pure, very profound spiritual way. And when a woman shares herself in that way, but then isn't also cherished and honored for the sacredness that she possesses, there's a wound that comes in that, right? And then that woman could have, as a result of those wounds, develop a wall around her heart, where maybe she then becomes a person who, one of a couple of things, either doesn't care about the feelings of men and really kind of does some of the same kind of things with men. And then the person who never experienced the abuse, who ends up with that woman, ends up experiencing the damage that comes in that. Okay. Anyway, the other aspect could be that the woman then develops walls and tries to keep love away, keep love at a distance, right? And this could be true of either men or women. This could very much be true of either men or women. But I'm pointing to this as something of significance, because it's a way in which there's pain that could be a very old wound that can still manifest in significant ways. It could be a person who maybe experienced some form of pain in connection with dealing with somebody who was narcissistic, who just didn't really care about the feelings of other people, or maybe just didn't care about your feelings, didn't care about honoring you as an expression of life, valued expression of life, right? And maybe as a result of that, you might be able to see where somebody else is putting up walls, but might not recognize your own walls. And I'm a believer in this. I'm a person who serves on the planet as a healer. You know, I have the wonderful privilege and significant responsibility of serving in a capacity that helps bring healing about. All right. And yet, with that said, it's a lot of times relatively easy for me to be able to identify people's wounds. Because I mean, I've got a lot of experience in this. I've got well over 10,000 hours invested in this. And, you know, it just becomes easy for me to identify that. What's not as easy is to identify my own wounds, right? And I believe that, and I have them. Let me own that. I definitely have them. I believe that if a person is experiencing something in their life experience, it's something that they've got to work through. Okay. And so you may be the person who is able to see, this person is just this way because of this. And that's creating this kind of scenario. That's maybe keeping you from getting close to this person. Or maybe that's why hurt people and all of this stuff, right? But that doesn't speak to what it is that is going on in you that is calling forth that experience necessarily. You may have some uh, some unhealed hurts that may manifest as uh, you can end up in a context with somebody who's in a very healthy place, you know, but maybe your experiences from somebody that you dealt with in the past who weren't in a healthy place may make you think, whenever you see some little thing, may make you think, oh, is this person this way? is this person also somebody who does, who just doesn't care about other people's feelings? Is this a person who really is just concerned with using people? It's easy for that kind of thing to happen without you even recognizing it. And then you start putting up these barriers, or then you start having, you start subtly pushing away. You start to create a story in your mind. Those stories in your mind can be something, can't they, folks? And let me just say, we've all got stories that we tell about the situations that we're experiencing in our lives. And sometimes we don't even recognize that we're telling a story. I'm not saying that we're telling a lie, but what we're telling is a story. We've got a story behind why somebody did something that they did, or why somebody didn't do something that they didn't do. Okay. We've got these defense mechanisms that are set up, or we have these knee-jerk reactions to different life situations when really maybe they didn't intend any harm or any ill at all. Maybe they didn't, maybe they weren't in anywhere near the same place as somebody else that you dealt with a situation with before, where somebody, you know, behaved in a way that resulted in pain for you. And it's human nature to want to protect ourselves from pain. It's human nature to want to protect ourselves from hurt, especially if we've experienced it in the past and we know what it's like. We definitely don't want to go through that mess again, even though a lot of times we often do. If you find yourself in situations where you're dealing with the same kind of people over and over again, it's an indication, the same type of people who are doing the same kind of stuff to you. It's an indication that there's some unhealed aspects within you, right? I remember this movie. It's a movie Dolly Parton was in, maybe in the 90s. It was called Straight Talk. And in Straight Talk, she ended up having this like radio show where she was giving like love advice. I don't even remember how all of that came about, but in this movie, uh, she was giving this advice to others, but she found she was really attracting the same kind of person in her own life. And she said that, um, it's like going to the grocery store and buying a box of cereal. And every time what you get is cornflakes. And maybe the packaging is a little different. It looks box is a little bit different. The writing's a little bit different. The picture on the same might look a little bit different, but you open it up and it's still cornflakes. And a lot of us have that experience. And in her particular case, she actually met somebody and came across somebody who actually was different than all the cornflakes people before, all the people who were really kind of from the same mold before, somebody who generally was different than the folks that she had dealt with in the past. But it took a minute for her to be able to actually receive that, because, when she came to this awareness that she had been essentially dealing with the same man in different bodies, essentially, um, you know, slightly different packaging, but essentially the same kind of person. When she came to that realization, she was like, this guy must be another box of cornflakes too. But in reality, it wasn't. And then there were some unhealed hurts that she had to work through to allow herself to receive that person into her life as somebody who truly was different, and be able to have a really happy, healthy, harmonious connection and relationship with that particular person. And I've got to go back and watch that movie again. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I encourage you to check it out. But I want to just really drive home the central idea that if we are human and we've had human experiences interacting with other people that didn't feel good to us, then there's room for us to address some. Jennifer, the name of the movie is called Straight Talk with Dolly Parton. I think it was out in the 90s, if I remember correctly. Straight Talk with Dolly Parton. And hey, Jennifer, by the way. Yeah, so, all of us have times where we've experienced disappointment and frustration and different things. The reality is, all of us have also, maybe not even recognizing it, have responded to others in a way that generated pain in other people too. Maybe that triggered the pain of other people. I can tell you that I'm a person who always wants to try to avoid triggering people's pain. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody. However, what's equally important is that a person still live their truth, that a person still live their truth. And I've been in situations where I contorted myself in all kinds of different ways to try to keep from triggering somebody's pain from the past. And the reality is that I was not at all like the person that they had dealt with in the past, but I was trying to keep from triggering them. And as a result, I just stopped being me, the authentic me that I am. And I don't choose to do that again going forward. I thank God that I'm in a healthier place now. That doesn't mean that there isn't still healing that even I need to address, because certainly there is. There are times that things come up that point to that. But I want to just kind of address this now in terms of some healing to to kind of help us all experience some resolve, some resolution, some healing from wounded aspects of us, unhealed aspects of us all. And so I invite us all to to make ourselves receptive to the healing. And I'm just going to start off with a little prayer. I realize we've got people who are here from different traditions, different backgrounds. I put this in a kind of universal way. God, you who is the source of all good, all love, all light, I acknowledge you as a miracle worker, as a healer. And I know that there is nothing, no pain, no wound that exists that extends beyond the reach of your ability to heal, to restore, to redeem, and to resolve. And I offer myself as an expression of love, a servant and an ambassador of healing, demonstrating your healing power on the behalf of all of us who are present, whether in the live broadcast or on some future playback, and even anyone that any of us holds the thought of and holds sacred space for, to be able to partake of the benefits of this and receive healing of unhealed hurts, unresolved wounds from the past. That those things are all neutralized, transmuted it from the point of the causal root, every strand of DNA in every cell of our body, going back to the first occurrence, and transmuting those things into it, replacing them with a sense of genuine, authentic empowerment receptivity to being the love that you've called us to be. For you are love, and those who dwell in love dwell in you. And I bear witness to the love that we are, to us being able to accept, receive, extend, and share love in a whole new way, from a place of freedom, of liberation, and joy. I bear witness to that as our new reality. And I bear witness to our wholeness. I bear witness to the unhealed healer becoming whole and being whole. The wounded warrior being whole. And so just becoming the healer, just becoming the warrior, becoming and being the full expression of the light and the love that you've called us to embody and to express. On this date and in this time and space called now, I affirm not that it shall be, but that it is done. It is done. It is done. Ashe, aho, amen. All righty. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. And so I mentioned earlier this issue dealing with and it having far-reaching implications of sexual abuse. And we want to resolve that trauma, the places wherein that pain was felt. We want to bring in and welcome the presence of God's light and love into that space. We want to open the door to where the pain is being stored. And welcome in the presence of God's light and God's love into that space. We want to address the physical damage that was experienced, the scar tissue, the unwelcomed implantation of bodily fluids, clearing those through the lymphatic and digestive system, both the physical and spiritual lymphatic and digestive system, so that neither of those physical particles are still present in the body temple, but nor the spiritual particles that were left as a result are left within one's beingness. All right, and we call forth the presence of God's love and light into those places. Yes. Welcoming in God's love and light into the places where there's pain and darkness. And we need not fear, welcoming in the love and light. And so on that note, we want to address fear. We want to address fear of being hurt. And we want to replace that fear of being hurt with faith of being protected. And not that we have to put up these walls and barriers to protect ourselves, but that we welcome in and receive the divine protection that comes in knowing that we are covered by God, that we're divinely protected. And we can still establish and honor healthy boundaries, but we don't have to be extra about it. All righty. Yeah. And I have a vision of my mind of a newspaper boy riding on a bicycle with a newspaper in hands and extra, extra, read all about it. Throwing newspapers on porches It's kind of an old school thing. Um, but I think about that where we feel concerned about other people being made aware of our pain. And so we try to hide and protect our pain from people knowing about our pain. And we put on these masks to act as if the pain never existed, which is a barrier for true intimacy. And with that, I call forth that we replace that with really the profound courage to allow ourselves to be naked and yet unashamed. To be naked and unashamed. With those who are worthy of beholding our nakedness. And I'm not talking about just our physical nakedness, not having clothes, but those who are worthy to behold our emotional nakedness, with whom we're able to be vulnerable and yet feel safe in that vulnerability. I want to strengthen us for feeling safe in our vulnerability and having the wisdom, the insight, and the discernment to be able to identify with whom we can allow ourselves to be naked. So much of what we do in our lives, we do to try to save face, to try to not look bad in the eyes of others. And yet, may we let that go. May we let those illusions go. So ultimately, what matters is how we feel about the person whom we see in the mirror. Other people's opinion of you is none of your business. Hey, cousin, Danny, it's good to see you. Sending hugs and love to you and kisses to you. Hope that you're doing well. Yes, Aurora Lee, going forth in true authenticity. All right, and we want to also address those areas where we have, some of us have, I know I have. If I'm anything, I'm a lover. Always aiming to extend love, accept people for who they are and extend love. Boy, but there certainly were some times that I withheld it from a person who very much needed it. And so we want to really address that in terms of guilt about withholding love from self. And we've all done it in different ways. We've all done it in different ways. Greetings, Karen. Good to see you as well. And so we want to actually offer ourselves forgiveness. And I'm going to invite each one of you to just put your hand on your heart. Just put your hand on your heart. Get in touch with ways in which you have withheld love from yourself. Situations that you've allowed yourself to be in that weren't healthy for you. And allow yourself to have compassion for that person. If there's some tears that you need to release, that's okay. Recognize that you were doing the best you knew to do in that moment. And say to yourself, I forgive you. A lot of times we think that somebody else is abusing us. It's easier that way than to acknowledge that we have, in a way, abused ourselves by subjecting ourselves to the abuse. The truth is that we teach other people how to treat us. And if a way that you have felt has been that you felt dishonored, that you felt encroached upon, that you felt violated, I want to encourage you to first and foremost forgive yourself for the experience that you had, and to welcome in and to invite the presence of God's love into that space where you have felt that pain. It's okay. The truth is that you are loved, you are adored, you are cherished. And even if you didn't experience that from someone that you wanted to experience that from, maybe a spouse, maybe a lover, maybe a parent, maybe a sibling, maybe some situation where there was some unrequited love, whatever the case might have been. Call love into the space where that person felt that pain, that version of you, maybe from the past, maybe currently, been feeling that pain or has felt that pain. Yeah, we all need that. We all need that. I want to also address times that we've lashed out at other people that didn't deserve it, maybe. A lot of times when we have unhealed hurt, we project our stuff on other people. And I say a lot of times just to kind of sugarcoat it. In essence, we always do that. We're almost always projecting our stuff on somebody else. Not always, maybe, but a whole lot of the time. We're projecting stuff that we don't even necessarily recognize that we've got going on. We project that on other people. So I invite us all to say, just in our hearts and our spirits, to whomever we've projected our own hurts on, the people that we've made our victimizer, that we hold them in mind and we again forgive ourselves. This time for the projection, for projecting our stuff onto somebody else. Just like Dolly Parton in that movie, when she met somebody who actually was different, she projected onto that person. I confess that I have projected. We all have in different ways. So I want you to forgive yourself, and in your heart and in your spirit, a person who you've projected your stuff onto. I want you to take a deep breath. And ask them to forgive you for projecting your stuff on them. In truth, I said earlier that we all have baggage, our own form of baggage. Maybe some have less than others. Maybe some deal with it better than others. Maybe some are committed to unpacking it. You know, no matter who you're dealing with in relationship with another, whether it's a family relationship, whether it's a interpersonal relationship, a work relationship even. You know, that person that you're dealing with is going to have some form of baggage. And in close relationships, the idea is to be able to lovingly help one another to unpack and not shame one another for the baggage or to be shamed for your baggage, but to connect with those who lovingly help you unpack your baggage and with whom you can lovingly help them unpack theirs. Right? Gene Thomason, hey, it's good to see you today. Glad to have you in the space. And so I want to invite us all to think of a time to allow ourselves to kind of go back in time to a place that we first felt hurt, a place that we may have first felt unheard or first felt abandoned or rejected, discarded in some way, devalued, invalidated. I want to invite you to go back to that time. We're not going to leave you there, but I want you to go back in your mind, to go back to that time. Healing happens when we shed light on the places that exist in darkness. And I want to invite you to go back to a time where you first felt that pain. It may have been a long, long time ago. I invite you to go back to that place. Envision it as a room stored within the hidden chambers of the secret recesses of your soul. And maybe a room that's down in the basement. You know, some places don't have basements, but if you can imagine what a basement is, it'd be buried underground. Okay? I want you to open that door to that room, knowing that God is with you. As you open this door to that room where that pain has been stored. And you may see yourself sitting over in a corner, maybe crawled up in a ball, maybe crying, maybe feeling afraid, maybe feeling angry. I want you to go over to that part of yourself that still exists. The reality is that you've locked a part of yourself up in that dark room. Because even that pain is a part of you. I want you to leave that door open behind you, welcoming in the light to that room. And know that as you're going over to that version of you from the past who was hurt, say whatever it is that you need to say to that person. Whatever it was that you are needing, that you may have thought that you needed somebody else to say to you at that time. Say it to that version of yourself. Whether it's I'm sorry or please forgive me or whatever it is, say it to yourself. Whether it's I love you, I got you, I'm here for you, whatever it is, say that to yourself. Know that as you're ministering to yourself, that God's angels have entered into this room with you, are clearing the cobwebs off, sweeping all the dust from off the floor, washing the grime from off the walls, and completely cleansing this space, filling it with love and with light, with peace, and with joy. And I invite you also. I invite you to take this aspect of yourself that felt this pain perhaps so long ago. Take yourself by the hand. You both stand up and now walk out of that room into the light. Even though there's already light filling that room, walk into the light, into a place that you find to be a peaceful place, a safe space. You may want to envision walking out with you are two humongous angels that you know are sent from God on assignment with you to keep you safe and protected, to make sure that no harm comes your way. And allow yourself to just dwell in that peaceful, safe space, wherever that safe space is for you. It may be a park, or it may be near some water. It may be on a mountaintop or a hilltop. Somewhere that seems to be the ultimate embodiment of serenity and peace for you. And knowing that your protection is there with you. That you've got divine protection assigned directly from God that's there to protect you and to keep you safe. Right? And you can dwell there as long as you want to or need to. And if you want to, you can always go back to that room too, but you don't have to anymore. Because you're still safe where you are. You're still protected. And in this spirit, I say thank you, God, for your divine protection. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for the sense of security that only you can provide, that authentic security that only you can provide. And may we feel safe and secure in your presence and under your protection. May we welcome in to our heart space the peace that passes all understanding, the grace of knowing that even in our mistakes, that you've got us covered. Give us space to recognize that our errors are forgiven. Give us the courage to forgive ourselves, and thank you for giving us the courage to forgive ourselves, and for being able to recognize this new and improved version of ourselves, more whole versions of ourselves, where we can go forth in light and in love, in life, with greater confidence, in who it is that we really ultimately are, in greater strength, and even in our strength and in our confidence, we can go forth in new humility, knowing that it's by your grace and by your provision and by your power that we're able to lay claim to this new level of joy, peace, and empowerment. And that we can go forward in our relationship with ourselves and with others in the newfound healthy way. And I thank you, God, for this gift of your divine love. And I count it as already done. Already done. It is already done. Thank you, God, for your love and for your grace. And for all of you who've been here today, as always, I wish you peace and love. Go about your day renewed. Take the love and the light of God with you. May you see it in yourself when you look into the mirror. May you see it in others as you interact with them. And may a new level of wholeness continue to show up in every interaction you have with every human you encounter from this day forth. Go in peace. Go in power. And go in love. God bless you.